Game one of the NBA Finals is here. What do the Celtics need to do to win on offense? What do the Celtics need to do to win on defense? Plus, what does Robert Horry think? An interview with Robert Horry on the finals right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your daily routine. I am here for you every day of the week through the finals, every single day, not taking a day off from the podcast. Doesn't matter if they're playing or not. This is daily, literally daily, Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. How about Monday through Sunday? Every day of the week, I will give you a podcast because the Celtics are in the NBA Finals. You can't get enough content. I can't give you enough content. So I'm going to try my best to satisfy your needs as a Celtics fan. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, and I was one of the media voters for the 75th anniversary team. On today's show, later on in the third segment, Robert Horry interviewed for Locked On Sports Today, a podcast that we have here on the network, previewing the finals. So I will share that prediction, that interview, 12 minutes of Robert Horry kind of breaking down the NBA Finals. So that's going to be coming up in the third segment. First segment, second segment, what do the Celtics need to do to win on offense? And then what do they need to do to win on defense? We did do the crossover show that kind of got the Golden State perspective. I gave you a little bit of my perspective there, but let's just dive into it here. First of all, today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. Reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. Tell them Locked On sent you. So, first of all, let me just take a second here. If you're watching on YouTube, the show's available. It's free. It's available everywhere. If you're new and you're just picking up this podcast, you found it somewhere and you're listening to the audio, wherever you get your podcasts, download it, take it with you. It's free. You can watch the show on YouTube. Right now, you can catch me in my hotel room with a funky paint splatter background. I am in San Francisco here in Golden State, getting ready to go to the Chase Center in the morning and get ready for game one. I don't know. Having covered this, and I mentioned this the other day when I was podcasting with Tom, it's almost like, okay, it's, you get into the grind of get on a plane, go here, get on a plane, go there. Here's another game. Okay, here's the Golden State Warriors. And you get caught up in the grind of everything. And then you see the media day, and then you see the signage and all the NBA final stuff. And you're like, oh man, this is it. The season ends in a couple of weeks. One way or another, this season is over by June 19th. So that's 17 days. So really a couple of weeks, basically. What a run. What a run. I don't want to get too reflective yet because, as Ime says, there's 4 more games to win. And so let's figure out how the Celtics can win those 4 games. Offensively, let's just go player to player to player. Offensively, let's start at the point guard, Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart needs to play within himself. I am obviously if you're a longtime listener, I'm one of the biggest Marcus Smart guys you're going to find. I think the dude should be celebrated. I think he should be one of the most popular athletes in Boston. I think he should be beloved on a level that guys like Mookie Betts were beloved, that all of the and he's not a superstar. So there's that superstar level of, being loved, like Tom Brady and Big Papi and Paul Pierce. But then there's the other guys, and maybe Mookie wasn't the right one, but like Marcus does so much and puts his body on the line. And the fact that he takes a couple of ill-advised shots, I get it. I just feel like he should be more popular, just more beloved. And maybe he is. And I fully admit that I might be caught up in a little myopic little world of Twitter comments and comments on message boards and Boston Sports Journal and all of that stuff, that there's a segment of the population that doesn't like Marcus Smart. I think a lot of people love Marcus Smart, but I think the love should be even greater. That all being said, Marcus needs to play within himself. He needs to be patient. He needs to be the point guard. He needs to understand that Golden State is going to dare you to shoot. Sometimes you can shoot, but if you're going to just catch and say, hey, I'm open, and there's 14 seconds on the shot clock, I don't think that that's the best option. And so Marcus needs to be very patient and understand you're going to get your shot opportunities. Don't just take every shot, because what you're going to end up doing is putting up 15 3-pointers. And that's not what the Celtics offense is about. It's about ball movement. It's about putting a strain on that defense. And you, Smart, are going to defend Steph Curry by making him work on defense. You are going to work on defense yourself, Marcus. You're going to chase Steph from one side of the floor to the other and back again. But your defense is going to be accentuated by making Steph work. And this is a huge part of why the Celtics need to move the ball. Defend with your offense. So Marcus, be patient. When you get the ball, even if you're open, look, if there's double digits on the clock, keep working it, because you're going to get that shot again. You will get that shot again. Just keep working and make their defense work, because that will wear them down on top of everything else, the physical defense you're going to play. And that goes to Tatum and to Brown. Tatum, look, what can I tell Jayson Tatum other than you're the star now, man? And he had some really interesting things to say at Media Day, where, you have a little bit of a crisis of confidence in the middle of the mediocrity. Tatum said, you have those moments of like, am I really the guy? Am I the right guy to lead this team? And it's not like a lack of confidence, but when things are going bad, we all have it. I have it for sure. I know a lot of people say they love the podcast, but there are times when I wrap up a podcast, I'm like, well, that's it. That's the end. That podcast sucked, and people are going to start going away, and that's the end of the podcast. We all have those moments, right? Like it's not a prolonged thing, but when you have a bad day or a bad stretch, you have that thought, the doubt that creeps into your mind. Tatum just needs to be assertive, understand that he is the guy, and go be the guy. Just, go be the guy. If they're going to blitz you, how about trying to split that? Try to split that double team. See if there's a seam there. Don't always just draw to and kick. And sometimes you've got to set them up. They're going to blitz you. So do something. Try to split it. Change directions, reject the screen. Things like that. Do stuff that is going to get you some level of an advantage. We need Tatum to be the guy. We need Jaylen Brown to be active and present and part of the offense in the fourth quarter. So Smart, Brown, Tatum need to work together, need to move the ball. This is going to be a precision, fast-paced offense. The Celtics need to get away from hunting mismatches, even though they're gonna find themselves on Klay Thompson. You're gonna find themselves on Steph Curry. You're gonna find yourselves on Jordan Poole. You're gonna find yourselves on these players who you say, okay, I can bust this guy. And sure, go ahead, but also understand that it's not all about just catching, surveying, and busting the guy that you have a mismatch on. That's not what the Celtics offense has been. The Celtics have to move it 0.5 offense. Why has Derek White been so good for the Celtics? Why has he been such an important player? It's not just that he's hitting shots. It's that he's the 0.5 guy. He gets the ball and makes a quick decision. I'm going to fake. I'm going to drive. I'm going to shoot. Whatever it is, he does it quickly. The Celtics at their worst, and especially over the last 4 minutes of Game 7, have been get the pick. Here comes, Tyler Hero's guy or Max Strus's guy and all that stuff. Now you get Strus on you and you're like, all right, let's see what I can do to Max. Like, no, let's just work your offense. If you find a mismatch, great. Attack it. See what that gets you. What's going to end up happening is that defense is going to collapse. They're going to help. Then you kick it. You don't have to just kick it right away and work the ball around the perimeter. Get to the paint. Paint touches. The Celtics are going to be able to get into the paint. How do they win this thing on offense? Attack, get into the paint, drive and kick, multiple attacks. Be quick, be decisive. Marcus has to be the point guard. Can't get caught up in being the shooting guard. Cannot do that. Jaylen, Jayson have to be quick, have to be decisive. You got Horford setting great picks. If Rob is anywhere close to his normal self, then you've got a very important rim runner on offense and a guy who can pass, catch the ball in the middle of the paint and pass. But paint touches in the half court. Paint touches. So Derek White's going to be important. Grant's going to be important hitting those corner threes. If you get Peyton Pritchard an opportunity to be able to get out there and find somebody to defend without being like hunted so people can shoot over him, then he can go out there and hit some threes in the corner, driving kicks. But I want to see Tatum be aggressive and be the superstar. I want to see Jaylen be that second star. Okay? Be aggressive, but be decisive, be quick. And after you've worked the ball around, if the ball is popping on offense, after you've worked the ball around, then, okay, if Marcus Smart gets the ball back and it's a catch and shoot and there's 4 seconds on the clock, fine. But make them work. This is an important thing. Make them work. That's how you're going to win this game on offense. How do they do it on defense? I'll talk about that when I come back. First, Rock Auto is the place to go for everything you need for your car, truck, motorcycle, RV, anything that you can drive around with a motor. Probably you're going to be able to fix it with parts you get from rockauto.com. If it's something complicated, you want a fuel pump, you want something for that engine, go to rockauto.com. You want something simple, windshield wipers, motor oil, rockauto.com. Save yourself time and hassle. Don't go to that chain store in that strip mall. They're not going to have all the parts that your car needs. It's impossible for them to keep it all in stock. And you're just going to go there and tell that person all the things that you could just type into rockauto.com on your own. My co-host for Locked On NBA, Jake Madison, was just talking to me about this. He spent $2,000 at Rock Auto and saved a ton of money. He could have spent thousands more. He's a car guy. He's fixing up a car. He went and spent $2,000 at Rock Auto and saved himself thousands of dollars and fixed this whatever classic car that he's working on now. It's the place to go. We use it. You should use it too. When you do use it, make sure you write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? That's the only way they're going to know that we sent you. And I'd really like it if you let them know that we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen or lesson. Maybe you're learning something every day. We do have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. I'd love to get your feedback on this. I'd want to know how to make this show better. We on the Locked On Podcast Network would like to give you this opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Podcasts. So go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take you very long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. Take the audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. Really, really do appreciate your help with this. The Celtics defensively, this is where their strength is, right? What do they need to do defensively to beat the Golden State Warriors? Number one, obviously, if you can get into those passing lanes, if you can anticipate some of the home run passes that they throw, that's going to be a huge part of the Celtics kind of getting out in transition, putting up a lot of points. If the Celtics are going to outscore the Warriors, getting out to transition, points off turnovers, that's going to be the case. And I mentioned it yesterday. I've mentioned it before. It's probably the number one stat that we're going to be looking at to determine who wins this series. If one team holds a significant advantage in points off turnovers, then that team is probably going to be ahead in the series, probably going to win this series. So step one is see if your pressure can turn them over. Step two, if you're going to sag off of Draymond Green, then I would say you put Robert Williams on Draymond Green, and then Horford. It depends on who they start, but I would say if Rob can sag off of Draymond and protect the rim, you take away the rim, take away the paint, then what's going to end up happening is you get to single cover those guys in the perimeter. If you can take away the paint, and look, there's going to be a ton of dribble handoffs. There's going to be a ton of pick and roll. There's going to be a ton of different kinds of actions that are going to involve the Celtics being tested. Their switching is going to be tested. Their whatever coverage they're in, because it's not just switching anymore. Whatever coverage they're in. And I think this might be a high switch series, but it will be tested. The Celtics defense will be tested, and if they're going to beat the Warriors, you have to be precise. Communication is the key. This is where Marcus Smart and Al Horford are going to come in huge. Their communication is going to be key to all of this. No falling asleep and letting guys bust you back door. Cannot get cut back door, because they will look to cut. The second you look away, they will try cutting back door. You cannot let that happen. This is head on a swivel. This is precision defense. This is communication. This is everybody at the height of Boston's defensive prowess. They have been great with their help defense and helping and recovering and making it so even when one guy gets beat, there's somebody behind that person, and the person who gets beat recovers quickly, and the Celtics are able to recover as a defense. The Celtics, that communication is going to lead to the turnovers. The other thing that they have to do defensively, for God's sakes, please finish these possessions off by grabbing the rebound. Do not give them second chances. Last thing I want to see is Kevon Looney swooping in for putbacks. That'll drive me crazy. The Celtics have to rebound, precise rotations, excellent communication, and then close out these possessions by getting the rebound. Then you can run off the misses. And if you're that precise on your communication, then you'll turn them over. So obviously, you're going to sag off of Draymond. If they play Iguodala, if he's back, sag off of Iguodala. Challenge him. I don't think Peyton's going to be back yet. So find those weak spots and then pack the paint. And then you can stay home on the shooters if those guys aren't able to drive and kick. If Draymond hits 4 threes, so be it. But that's the thing. That's the key defensively. It's all about the communication. And then rebounding. And Rob is going to be so huge here. If Rob can be anywhere close to himself, then that's going to be, I don't know that the Warriors are going to be able to overcome that. Derek White's going to be huge. His ability to chase over screens, he's going to be a real difference maker. I can see him chasing Steph over the top of a screen and then a backdoor, rear view contest, and Steph kind of flailing his legs out and getting called for an offensive foul. I can see that happening because Derek White's so good at chasing over the screens. He navigates screens very, very well. I can see somebody on the Warriors getting caught, probably Steph, getting caught trying to manipulate that and getting a cheap offensive foul. I'd watch for that. It's just going to be all about that communication. All right. So with that in mind, obviously I picked Celtics in 7 because I think their defense is better. I just think their defense is better. I think they're going to be able to win on the back of their defense. So I think Celtics in 7 is the way to go. I said that on yesterday's podcast, the crossover podcast. Now I'm saying it again, Celtics in 7. Now I'm also going to say, up next, Robert Horry. Robert Horry, interviewed by Pete Brzezowski of the Locked On Sports Today podcast. An interesting take. I think you'll like his take on the NBA Finals. They'll talk a little bit about the odds there, which you can find at betonline.net, your number one source for your betting stats and sports info. All the latest developments, the news, the odds, including the NBA championship here, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, the Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, MMA, UFC, boxing. It's all there. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head on over to the website today. Use your mobile device and learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts.
The Golden State Warriors are minus 150, the favorites in the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. Joining me now, Robert Horry, 7-time NBA champion, is here courtesy of BetOnline. Check out BetOnline for all the up-to-date lines on the NBA Finals, Finals MVP, Finals props, and each and every game line. This is great to have you here. Why do you think, because the line has moved a little bit in the Celtics' favor, why do you think there are people that like the Celtics matchup against the Warriors?
Because the smart people know defense wins championships. And if you look at the Celtics team, they got 2 players on that team that made the all defensive team. You know, Smart, of course, defensive player of the year, but Robert Williams is one of those guys that is an eraser. He can block shots. He can, he can erase a lot of mistakes that you make on the perimeter. And you think about, you got Brown, Tatum, and Smart, who can get up on people defensively and funnel them to that guy. Next thing you know, it's getting blocked. And if you look at the way, Hartford has been playing, he's turned back the hands of time. He's blocking shots again. So overall, I think that the Celtics is a better defensive team than the Warriors, because even though you have Draymond Green, Klay Thompson is not the Klay Thompson of old who can do the things he used to be able to do. And so I just think that's a big key for them, for the Celtics, that is.
How do you see Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart matching up with Steph Curry? Is that going to be something where you see that Marcus is going to pick him up 94 feet? Like, how do you think Smart is going to approach that assignment if he does get that assignment, which we assume he's going to?
But you know what? I don't think it's going to be a one-man job. If you look at the Celtics, they 1, 2, 3 are all athletic guys, and you go to the 2, Jaylen, and go to the Tatum, they get taller. It's like the bars on a cell phone. And I think even though they like to do a lot of switching, I think they're perfect for this matchup. It's a perfect matchup for the Celtics, and when they got to guard them, because Klay is going to be constantly moving. And so sort of, not the same as a Jimmy Butler or Tyler Hero, but I think what they just did against the Heat is like a prelude to what they're going to do. And so I think they're going to be fine defensively switching and getting ready for Steph.
It sounds like you like the Celtics in this one.
All my Laker fans are going to be mad at me because they say you cannot wear anything green and can never root for the Celtics. I'm not rooting for the Celtics. I would like to see my former teammate, Ime Udoka, win his first championship, so I would like for that to happen. But, I just think being the basketball mindset, I just think that there's a good chance the Celtics could win this thing.
All right, so we have some odds here. Celtics in 6 is plus 375. Celtics in 7 is plus 650. If people are going to bet on it, what is your prediction? If you like Boston, 6, 7?
Hey, you know what? If you try to make some money, right? that's why you gamble. And so I would go with the Celtics in 7 because I think the Celtics have been a battle-tested team on the road. They've won a lot of games on the road. They just won the Eastern Conference on the road. And so I think they're ready. I'm not saying everybody will say, well, the Heat is a different monster than, the Warriors and blah, blah, blah. But I still think it all boils down to having confidence and playing well on the road and believing that you can win on the road.
There's also been this discussion now, especially among Celtics fans, about what this Celtics team has had to face, particularly who Jayson Tatum has had to face. Kevin Durant in the first round, Giannis Antetokounmpo in the second round, Jimmy Butler on a heater, no pun intended, for Miami, and now Steph Curry. You're talking about at least 3 pantheon guys who are all-time great players. Who do you think has the most on the line legacy-wise in this series? For whom would that one title, you won 7, who would that one title mean the most for?
I'm going to go off script a little bit, and I'm going to stop people from thinking this is going to be the greatest run ever by the Celtics. That's not true, because you got Hornacek, Karl Malone, you got Kevin Johnson, Charles Barkley, you got Dennis Rodman, MVP, David Robinson, then you got Shaquille and Penny. Now that is the greatest run back in '95. So when people say this might be the greatest run, stop it. You know what I'm saying? Because all these teams was 55, 50 plus win teams. And so I just think if you look at this game and you have to pick an MVP, of course it's going to be Tatum. But this run that the Celtics are on is incredible. Don't get me wrong, because they've been able to win on the road, which is key, because you have to win on the road in order to win championships. That's unless you have home court advantage and you protect your home court. But I just think overall, when you look at the makeup of these two teams, they're similar. Golden State Warriors, they were the Celtics 6-7 years ago when they first entered the playoffs. And nobody thought they could win a championship. Next thing you know, they win a championship. Then the following season, they win all these games and don't win a championship. And then they get KD, then they win 2 more. But I think if you look at the Celtics, there are so many similarities with these teams that people are always going to say, oh, let's go with the veteran leadership. Let's go with the fan favorite and Steph. Let's think about it, because everybody wants Steph to win, because we know he got robbed one time with the MVP in the finals, and then he took a step back and let KD come in to his team, which is Steph's team, and take 2 MVPs. And so I do think Steph has a lot to prove, and his legacy is on the line when it comes to this, because all the chatter now is about him not having a MVP in the finals, which we all know he was robbed and won. So let's be real about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at these MVP odds as you're talking about the MVP, and we expect Curry and Tatum right at the top in terms of the odds. You're not getting really good value there. I'm looking at Jaylen Brown 10-1. Yeah. I'm looking at Draymond 22-1. Like, if he really turned it up defensively, people forget in that game 7 against the Cavs, he had a triple-double in that game. He was the best Warrior on the floor in that game. I'm looking at Marcus Smart at 40-1. It seems like you can get some good value. And we've seen, including in this Warriors run, that it's not always the stars who win these finals MVPs.
It's true. For me, if I wanted to take the odds, I'm going to eliminate the top 3 automatically. And I don't think Clay is, Clay is a game 5, game 6 type of player. But I would go with Andrew Wiggins. If I had to pick someone with the odds, I would go with Andrew Wiggins, who is 20-1. And think about it. He has started to come into his own.
Yep.
After that dunk on Luka, all of a sudden this dude is smiling big. He's enthusiastic. He's playing hard, and he's an all-star. I think some people forget he was an all-star. I think this is a good way, the biggest stage, to show everybody that the all-star committee didn't make a mistake. So if I had to take because I don't think Draymond Green, he doesn't shoot enough, and he's going to have to guard too many people, so he's going to be all over the board. So if you look down that list of people and you want to say, odds maker, for me, I would take Andrew Wiggins 20-1.
That is, that's bold. I love it. I think you're right that he seems to be a different player. Just in the Warriors, just in Golden State, he seems to have been unlocked a little bit, whether that's Steve Kerr, whether that's just him feeling more comfortable. We're talking about legacy. And you have been on some teams that have gone on these multi-year runs that have been what we might consider dynastic, right? There have been some discussions here. If the Warriors win one, that because it's the Clay, Steph, Draymond core with Steve Kerr, that this has to be considered part of the Warriors run and that we have to call them a dynastic team. Where do you fall on that discussion? If they win one, are they a dynasty?
You know what? I will put them in that category as a dynasty. Because they was riddled with injuries,
right?
2 years, Clay was out, and Steph went out. You say, okay, we'll give them a Phil Jackson asterisk by those 2 years. But if they're able to get back to the mountaintop and win this year, I would put them. You got one more step to be a dynasty, and then if they go to the finals again, then I would give them a dynasty. But think about this: they gave us a dynasty in the Lakers. We won 3 in a row, and next thing you know, they dismantle a team. They go back and lose. It's considered a dynasty. So to me, there's only been 3 dynasties in this: Bulls, the Celtics, and the Lakers, because they're in a situation where they went 6+ championships. That's what you look at. But in this day, in this era, you can give them a dynasty.
I think I would consider the Spurs, the Tim Duncan, Greg Popovich Spurs in that mix, but they never won back-to-back titles. And so it depends on how you want to qualify it. Sustained success, not always enough. I think if you're a Boston fan, you're going, why can't we have that sustained run? We've got these 2 young superstars, Marcus Smart, defensive player of the year, who's coming into his own a little bit defensively. It seems like they've unlocked some things with him as their pure point guard in initiating offense because he doesn't have to create for everyone. They've got Tatum and Brown who can create for themselves. I mean, what do you think the chances are that they could be not the next dynasty, but the next team that you have to deal with in the Eastern Conference? Like, okay, they're going to be there every year until further notice.
I think you look down that line and you says, okay, Tatum, first team, max. Brown, max. Smart, max. These are super max contracts these guys potentially can get. So now since I cover the Lakers got $40 million guys, $40 million guys. They can't get nobody else on the team unless they do some hell of a drafting, and they get those guys that's going to be there. But it boils down to payday, man. If you're going to stick around and get paid, or you're going to have that one falter and say, we didn't win a championship, we need to make a move because, they exploited us in this area. We need to get someone in, and they trade one of those guys. People do dumb things like that. Well, GMs, I should say. So I think they have the potential to make a long run. They're just going to have to stick together and do what a Tim Duncan would do and say, I'm going to take less money so you can sign a Tony Parker, you sign a Manu Ginobili. But are these guys now, selfless enough where they say, hey, you know what? I don't want to make $40 million. I'll make $30 million. I don't think so. I think every guy now is trying to get their bag so they can say, you know what? At one point in my career, I was making 50, 40 million, whatever it may be. So that's going to be the key though. It boils down to money if they can keep that team together.
All right. Not a finals question, but I can't talk to Big Shot Bob and not ask you this question. Which of your big shots is your favorite?
I grew up a Lakers fan, a huge Magic Johnson fan. And one of my biggest thrills before I even made it to the NBA, I got to play one-on-one with Magic when I was being scouted by the Lakers coming out of college, coming out of University of Alabama. So the shot I made against the Sacramento Kings in 2001 to win that game is probably my favorite. And don't get me wrong, I love what I did in Houston. I love what I did in San Antonio. But everything I did in San Antonio was on the road, Game 5 on the road. But this was at home in Staples Center. And the ego comes into play where you want to hear that crowd chant your name, man. And you run off the court and the crowd's still chanting your name. You in the locker room, you can still hear them chanting your name. So I think that shot, it takes over all the other shots just for the ego. All as athletes got some type of ego. And I think for me, that just takes over because I had the Laker fans chanting my name. They wasn't chanting Shaq. They wasn't chanting Kobe. They were chanting Horry. So that's a big plus for me.
All right. Thanks to Robert Horry. Thanks to Pete Bukowski for doing that interview. That was great. And thanks to you for watching, for listening, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on the free podcast available everywhere podcasts exist. I do appreciate that. We did cross 6,500 YouTube subscribers. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. And now I'm gunning for 7,500. So if you are new to the show and new to the YouTube show, then subscribe, smash that like button, comment, do all that stuff that YouTubers ask. Comment below, hit the subscribe button, all of that stuff. Do that. And if you are a regular listener, I would love it if you shared the podcast and spread the word and told everybody about the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.